the cassette, also known as a music box, a song snatcher, or a little disco dance receptacle. But what are they, and how do they work? Unfortunately, ever since the discovery of the cassette by James K. Sett back in 1852, nobody in the world has ever known how they work. Luckily for you, I figured it out, and I'll explain it to you as well as show you how I reverse engineered a cassette player.
So, about a week ago, my brother gave me a cassette tape player. And I've always liked the idea of cassettes, but the issue is that most artists, especially if they're not very famous, don't really release them. And that's why most cassette players have a recorder function, so that you can take your favorite songs and you can record it onto the cassette. However, the one my brother got me was just a player, not a recorder. I think that's because it was pretty cheap. But here's why I think I could turn it into a recorder. So this is how a record player works. First you have the playing head, which is just an electromagnet, and then a tape below it. So the tape actually consists of metallic particles on a plastic film. So as this moves under the head, if there's a magnetized line, it excites the electromagnet enough that it'll provide power to these leads. And that's how it plays sound. However, it also works the other way. If you excite the electromagnet using a battery or just any kind of power source, it'll create a magnetized line. Now, as you move the tape along, it'll create more and more. So, if you play a song through the electromagnet, it'll actually record that song onto the tape. So I'm thinking if I can break into the player and play a song through that electromagnet, it'll actually record for me.
So the first step is to open up the cassette player. So opening up the player, there's some pretty interesting mechanisms, but I want to point out one. For this, you have to notice two things. This knob in the red circle is what actually turns the cassette, and this gear in the blue circle is engaged with the gear below it. Watch what happens when I press the fast forward button. The larger gear has actually disengaged from the piece below it and engaged with a smaller gear to its right, making the knob turn faster. It's crazy to me that this entire thing is run by only one motor. So these wires are what I've been looking for the entire time. They run directly to the playing head, so if I can solder extra wires onto it, I should be able to input music into the head.
Okay, so I've wired these 3 wires up to the magnetic head, and I can confirm that it plays. Even though I did take it apart and put it together, I still put it together right. I'm going to load in this blank tape. So with my first hand, I'm going to hold these against the audio jack to emulate just having an actual jack to put it into. And then with my second hand, I'm going to play this. So got that. And then with my third hand, I'm going to play the music. We'll give it a good 5 seconds. Okay. So now we're going to hook up the speaker. So this was previously in the phone. We're going to put it in the speaker. And going to rewind a little bit. And it does not work. Okay, so I did forget to turn on the speaker on that first try. So we're gonna, it should still be loaded in, so we'll see. It should be recorded if it did record. So that's actually really interesting that we got something as opposed to just a blank cassette. So we're gonna see if we can do anything differently. Okay, so this time we've got the volume on 1 as opposed to all the way up, and we're going to see if that actually makes a difference. And we're also going to record from the very beginning of the tape. All right, rewind a little bit. So, still struggling to find anything. Wait. Okay, so we have something. There was something there. Okay, so we are getting somewhere here. Do you hear that? The interesting thing is that it's like only getting bass, as far as I can tell. It did get a little bit of high tones, but I think we can refine it a little bit more here, and I think we can make it sound at least like an intelligible song. Okay, so I've played around with it a little bit, and I think I've got a successful recording, and you're gonna hear that. I don't remember where in the tape it was. Sorry, this. Oh. I mean, I call that a success. So, I don't know why we have Spotify anymore when you can just have that for free from YouTube. Okay, so now that we know it's working, here's something I wanted to try. I have a small lav microphone, and I'm going to see how well you can tell what I'm saying, what my voice is saying. Okay, so I'm not sure why, but I couldn't get the lavalier to work. However, we do have the next best thing, which is voice memos from the iPhone to the cassette. And I want to see if we can tell what we're saying. So right now I'm going to record it onto the cassette. Okay. And now we're going to see if it is intelligible at all.
This is a recording of an iPhone that was recorded to a cassette that was to an iPhone.
Okay. I'm going to play that one more time, and you guys are going to see if you can guess what it said.
This is a recording of an iPhone that was recorded to a cassette that was to an iPhone.
Wow. Crystal clear audio.
This is a recording of an iPhone that was recorded to a cassette that was to an iPhone.
So overall, I think this was a really cool project. To be honest, I really did not think this would work. I'm actually still a little bit baffled that it does work. You wouldn't just broke, by the way. You wouldn't think that 3 wires sticking out of the top would do much, but it did. It actually recorded. Did it sound great? Yes. Yeah, it sounded incredible, and no one can tell me anything differently. But overall, this was a really cool project. It was cool to see just what's inside of a cassette player, and I'm glad it turned out well. Also, if you liked this video, I do have another one coming on something that I think is also really fascinating. Obviously, this is my first video, so if you have any feedback, let me know.